If the price is not what you're wanting to pay or you can't afford that, then feel free to walk away. Normally when you start walking away, they will go, okay, I'll take it for that price. So that it's just about being observant, asking the question. If you see other travellers in the market and they've bought something that you really want to buy, ask them what they paid for it also. So it's about doing a bit of research while you're in the market, discreetly of course, but it's at home. You might be looking to buy a new washing machine. What will you do? You'll price match. You'll go to a few different retailers to get the best price for the exact washing machine that you want with all the features. Do the same when you're in a market. You've got to price match. How do you price match? You go and ask a few people and observe, and then get into the bargaining.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a travel podcast by me, Payal Nayar. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Hi everyone, today I am in conversation with Linda King. Linda is an author, she's a travel writer, she's a travel blogger, and she's the founder of the Smart Travelista, which is a brand about traveling and saving money. Interestingly enough, prior to Linda doing all of these wonderful things that she's doing now, she was a travel agent, which is interesting because it's so common with what I used to do, as I say, in my past life. I was in the travel industry as well. And Linda was also a banker. So thank you for joining me today, Linda. And I have to also add here that Linda has written and published 9 books. So we're going to talk all about her travels, about the Smart Travelista, her books, and lots of other interesting stuff. So thank you again, Linda, for joining me today.
Thank you, Payal. What a beautiful welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Linda. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what actually inspired you to start writing about travel and then to set up what you did and found the Smart Travelista? So what, just some background to how that happened.
Sure. Yeah, so travel, Payal's been in my life since I was a child. We travelled really often. And when I left school, I really wanted to get in the travel industry. It had always been a dream of mine to get in there because the travelling had started, I had started travelling young and I wanted to do more of that. I suppose you could say I caught the bug as a child. And so that led me into the travel industry, working for an airline. And what I did, obviously, as part of my role, as you mentioned, was as a travel agent. So I was booking a lot of people to travel the world. I booked my own travel so I could travel the world. But then when I left the travel industry, what I realised is that most travellers don't know the insider travel tips that I use. For me, and for yourself, probably it's very simple because we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But for people that haven't...
Like you mentioned that you got the travel bug, for me, it's in my blood. I think I started traveling from the day I was born. And so therefore, like you said, the natural progression was to become a part of the travel industry. So even I did that, and I worked in a couple of different airlines. And yeah, so I completely can feel the energy from you, even though we're so many miles apart, about how it makes you breathe, eat, sleep, travel.
Yes, perfect. You couldn't have put it more perfectly. And then I think the Smart Travelista came about because I'd done the travel and also the money management, obviously in banking. And I put it together, and the rest, I suppose you could say, is history. So I continue to travel and also share my tips via the Smart Travelista.
Okay. So, can you elaborate a little bit on the kind of tips that you share? That's one. And in your opinion, because I'm talking to you and I'm interviewing you for my show Now Boarding. And Now Boarding it's a show which talks a lot about, it stems from the fact that, of course, today we have to be extremely aware and conscious of the environment, and therefore ecotourism is a very important factor in my show. And of course, there's a lot more in terms of sustainability and conservation. But from a travel standpoint, so that's the second part of my question. What are the kind of sustainable, for people to have a sustainable experience when they travel, and in terms of awareness of how to be aware of the different cultural nuances of the different countries. Do you incorporate that into the kind of tips that you offer to the people who avidly read your travel blogs?
Absolutely. Back to your first question, mainly the tips that I share about how to save money. If you can get that trip more economical, it means that you can do more travel. Also, being a solo traveler and a female, I've got a lot of solo travel tips that I can offer people as well. When you talk about sustainability, absolutely. It's about respecting wherever you travel. So what I try and do is when I book my flight, I try and pay that little bit extra actually for I forget what they're called, but they actually give back to the environment. So there's extra taxes that you can pay. And also, whenever I'm traveling somewhere, I've been to a lot of countries where there's been rubbish everywhere, and tourists have been really, how could I say, ignorant and just treated it like they would, which is quite frightening, treating it like their own country. I will take that rubbish with me. I will be mindful about the things that I do so that I'm not affecting the environment and basically respecting it. So I'm always very mindful about that. As far as, yes, sustainability, that's normally what I would do. And I also promote that through my work. So whether it's blogging, always try and give them gentle warnings about places. So it's not really harsh, like you must do this. It's about, my suggestion is that, especially, I could give you an example of this. I went to Maya Bay recently when I went to Phuket and then went to Krabi. And that Maya Bay is within a national park. So it's about respecting that national park, being really gentle to the environment, taking your rubbish with you, and try not to, because it's a very untouched place. We want to keep it that way. But by not being mindful of that, then you're actually ruining it for other travelers in the future.
Yeah. With all your traveling and all the travel writing and the different experiences that you have had, what kind of changes have you seen personally and professionally?
Myself, I think with the travel, it's actually an education. And you really learn about yourself, especially if you're doing solo travel. Group travel is good also, but I think when things go wrong, which they sometimes do, Payal, when we travel, you learn resilience. You learn to rely on yourself. You get stronger. I think you're more tolerant of other cultures as well, because you're understanding that it's not just about you and where you live. It's about everyone else in the world. I think you become more tolerant. I think you become more open-minded. I think you also, this is one thing that I do, is check the culture and also the etiquette before I travel somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm being respectful to that culture and also that country. There's a lot of things you can do before you travel that means you're a more respectful traveller and a nicer person, I think, and kinder to everybody.
All your travels, what are some of the unique cultural experiences that you've had that have left a lasting impact on you? And always tend to say, okay, we go somewhere and we like the country and we say, or the city or wherever we may have gone, and we always, and at least I do that, and I say, oh my god, I have to come back here again. I don't think I haven't been fulfilled with my experience here. But then there are 10 other cities and countries that are also calling, so it becomes a hard choice like that. But there's always one cultural experience that has been unique and that always stays with you as a memory. I could talk about mine, but I'm curious to hear it from you.
Yeah, I've got so many, but I would have to say one that really surprised me was I went to Stonehenge in Salisbury in England. I had wanted to go to that place for as long as I can remember, probably since I was at school. When I got there, there was some sort of spiritual awakening that happened there when I went there. It was just quite bizarre. I can't put it into words. It was a very windy day and there was a lot of wind around. I just felt like there was presence. I know everyone's got their different opinion about this, but I felt a presence around me when I was there. And it might have been the jet lag. I'm not sure, but I started crying. It was just something that really affected me. So it could have been the jet lag and I was a bit tired, but I think it was the actual experience that had affected me. And that stayed with me for as long as I can remember. Also, just going to countries that are very religious and spiritual, also I'm affected by that. Most recently, I went to Phuket and I went to some Buddhist temples, and that was also very memorable. I'm very, I'm very intrigued about the different religions that people in different countries have, and I think you'd have to be not normal to be affected by that if you're being respectful and you're getting into the essence of the place. Yeah, they'd probably be the ones, but I think we're so lucky that we can travel to all these wonderful places in the world. I think we're so blessed to experience what we experience because I don't know, sometimes you can't put it into words because you just have to be there to really understand. But I think it's so wonderful that we get to experience those instances where those moments in time where that happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've talked, I read some of your blogs, and you've mentioned a lot about loyalty programs for different airlines and how to effectively use one, become a part of these loyalty programs, and two, how to effectively use your miles and whatever the different loyalty programs have to offer. For me, having worked in the travel industry for 15 years and having worked with airlines, as you have done as well, I understand it. Since we are chatting and it's all about your travel writing, I would like you to talk a little bit about it so that the people who are listening in, who are getting familiar, like I mentioned earlier, with starting to travel and enjoy different experiences, what are some tips for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Airline miles is a big one, building those. I think really what you have to think about, you can do two things. You can get really serious about one loyalty program, or you can join multiple ones. And depending on where you travel, you can use those applicable programs. What I try and do, I've got one primary loyalty program, and it's really the one that I concentrate on. So, what it's about, understanding what airline you're going to travel a lot on, joining their loyalty program, and then building a strategy. So, what products does that program offer? So, it's not just about taking the flights, it's not just about the hotels or the car rental or the touring. There's actually, with most of these loyalty programs, there's other things like credit cards that are attached to and there's finance products. There might be insurance, there might be mobile plans, there could be, we're really lucky in Australia, we have a supermarket program that's connected to the main frequent flyer program. So we go down to the shops every week. We're spending money on food. We're building our points that way. So it's about really understanding your loyalty program intricately and then using the products that are going to fit into your lifestyle. What I would say also, and everyone's got a different opinion about this, I build the points so I can do long haul trips. So really big long haul trips, say from Melbourne to London or to Europe. You can use and redeem the smaller places like to Asia or where it may be, but you're getting the best value depending on the program when you go long haul. So it means that you've got to delay the gratification a little bit. You're not getting the free flight as quickly. But if you be really serious about it, you can really build some serious points. And how nice is it to go to, say, London or Europe in business class because you've saved all those points, and it makes that so worthwhile, all the things that you're doing to get to that point. But I would say decide on your strategy, go into that website, make it a project, understand what that program is offering. Also, keep up to date with what they're offering because it changes all the time. You might look at it 6 months ago. Well, if you look at it, say today, it might have different things on there. So it's just making it a project. Have it as a side project as well as the research you're doing for your travel destinations. And yeah, absolutely. My opinion is go in at it with it all or don't do it at all.
Yeah.
So you've really got to go in and put yourself right in there to really get the maximum benefit of the points.
What are some tips that you could offer in terms of how travelers pack their luggage in order for it to be a more sustainable trip?
I think don't take as many clothes as you would normally. Like when we start off, we think, oh, we need everything. To be more sustainable, and again, you could be going to different places. If you're at home, you can't wear the same thing 2 days running. Say you're in the office. If you're going to 2 different places, those people aren't going to see you tomorrow. So can you, as long as it's not a really hot place and the clothing is still okay, in an okay state, why not take less clothing, especially if you're going to a cold place? It's a bit difficult if you're in a hot place because you're sweating and it's quite hot. But what I would try and do is, firstly, I put all the clothes out and go, okay, that's probably too much. Let's scale it back. One thing that I would do also, if I have too much, and obviously I'm a big shopper, I would then donate some of my goods if I could, if they're in an okay state, for someone else that would get really good wear out of it. So for us, I think we're very materialistic in the Western world. A pair of shoes that we think have passed their use by date would probably be really good for someone, and they'd be really glad to get that. So I try and do as much of that as I can, depending on where I am. But I'm always just really mindful of not creating more, I suppose you could call it rubbish for the world. It's about how I still get that experience without creating that footprint.
Yeah.
When we travel by plane, obviously we are creating a bit of a carbon footprint. So what can I do to balance that up? Paying that little bit extra so they can then invest that into sustainable activities is one thing that I do. If I can get a train maybe instead of a flight wherever I am, I try and do that also because train travel is, I think, it's a lot less harmful to the environment, and you get a different experience also. You see a lot of lovely, beautiful scenery. I'm always mindful of those sorts of things. It might be sometimes a little bit more expensive, but you're doing a better thing for the world, I think. Yeah, I'm always mindful of that. Recycling, as I said, donating things. I think that helps just even out the playing field, I suppose you could say, when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Where are you traveling to next?
I'm going to Canada in October. I actually did have some trips planned, but Unfortunate for me, a few weeks ago I got COVID, so those trips got delayed. So that they'll be happening next year. I was due to go to Vietnam and also New Caledonia, but there was some unrest, violent unrest that happened there. But my next one is Canada, which I'm going to do a bit of train travel as well. Never been there, so that's going to be very nice. And heading over to Miami as well for a bit of sun. And next year, I haven't planned what 2025 is going to be, but there's going to be a lot of travel. But I've just got to get some things sorted out before that happens. But yeah, definitely continued travel in my future. Probably for about the next 5 years at least. I've got trips that I've got on my bucket list that I'm definitely going to do.
Yeah.
It'll be going on for longer than that, obviously, but yeah, some serious trips that I'm planning. So yeah, and yeah, can't wait. It's going to be excellent. What about you? Where is your next travel?
I've just spent 2 months in Spain and just come back to Singapore. There is a fair amount of travel. For me, it's every month I need to be somewhere. And in fact, I will be making a trip to Australia. So between now and the end of the year, I've got India, I've got Malaysia, I've got Perth, I've got the US. And so these four are definitely happening. And who knows what else comes along between these trips? I have no idea. Because for me, I can't remember whose quote it is. It's not mine. So someone has said to travel is to live. And I completely believe in that philosophy because I think for me, the kind of education, and we talked about it a little earlier, I think travel is an education which is a lifelong education. And I feel that, like you also mentioned earlier, that we are privileged to be able to travel. And I feel fortunate that I can. It's my passion and it's in my blood. Like I said, I was born in one country, I've lived in multiple other countries, and it is who I am. It defines me as a person. And I feel like I wouldn't change that for anything else. And I'm so grateful that I have been able to have all these life experiences and being a part of different cultures and integrating with these different cultures, learning a new language. When I moved to Spain, I didn't know any Spanish and I can now speak Spanish. So every single experience is a learning. And I feel the same with my two shows, Melting Pot and Now Boarding. Every conversation that I have is a learning. And I feel like it enhances me as a person and it empowers me and encourages me to also continue to do what I'm doing. And the reason why I kept asking you questions about the environment and sustainability is because it is my belief as well that every single conversation that I have for my show Now Boarding, if it connects with even one listener or viewer, I think that I have had an impact. So, for example, my conversation with you, where you talk about the tips for packing when you're as a traveler, when you're on a trip, or the fact that you do train travel and wherever you can because of the carbon footprint. If anybody listening out there is a new traveler, and if he or she picks that and says, okay, that's interesting, I think I can also do my part in traveling by train more than I fly because I want to reduce carbon footprint, I think there has been an impact. So this is where I feel like traveling is an absolute it makes you who you are. And that's
Mm.
what I feel and I believe. So, which is why, like you, I hope I never stop traveling, because to
Yeah.
me, to travel is to live. Thank you. I really enjoyed myself. It's been interesting to see what the fact that you are using your platform to reach out to a lot of travelers, I think is a wonderful thing to do. And if you can throw in some more messages on or tips on how to be eco-friendly when you're traveling, and how to try and conserve and preserve the environment as to the best of your ability while you're traveling. I think if you can incorporate a lot more of that into your travel blogs, it will add even more of a dimension to the wonderful job that you're already doing. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.